Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. When I first married Emily, I thought I had found a missing piece of my life. Someone whose smile could light up my mornings and whose laughter could carry me through the darkest nights. But years later, things between us shifted in a way I never saw coming. It wasn't a sudden explosion, more like a slow burn, the kind that consumes everything before you realize a fire was ever lit. At first, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I was working too much, spending too little time with her, or failing to show affection the way I used to. But then the small signs began to appear. Nights when I reached out to hold her hand in bed, only for her to roll away. Evenings when I tried to kiss her goodnight, and she'd murmur, "I'm tired." At first, I believed her. Everyone gets tired. But after weeks turned into months and months into nearly a year, tired started to sound more like uninterested. I remember one night in particular. The rain outside was steady, the kind that taps gently against the windows. I turned to face her, hoping that maybe this time would be different, that maybe she'd turn toward me instead of away. But she didn't. She lay on her side, her back to me, her breathing even and distant. "Emily," I whispered softly, "can we talk?" She didn't answer right away. For a moment, I thought she might be asleep. Then she sighed. "About what, Alex?" I hesitated. "About us." Her shoulders stiffened slightly. "What about us?" I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I feel like we're growing apart. I don't know how to fix it if we don't talk about it." There was silence, the kind that fills every corner of a room and makes the air feel heavy. Finally, she said, "Not everything needs fixing, Alex. Sometimes things just change." That sentence stayed with me. Sometimes things just change. It echoed in my head as the nights went by, each one colder than the last. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly we had stopped being partners and started becoming strangers. During the day, we acted normal. We made breakfast together, laughed occasionally about mundane things, and even went out for dinners when friends invited us. But behind the smiles and the casual conversations, there was a quiet distance neither of us dared to address. I started to notice how she avoided my eyes when I said goodbye in the morning. She'd hand me my coffee with a soft smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'd kiss her cheek, and she'd turn slightly so my lips brushed her hair instead. And that's when it began, my habit of avoiding her in return. Every morning, I'd wake up before her. I'd shower quickly, grab my work bag, and leave before she even stirred. No more waiting for her to wake up. No more lingering in the kitchen to share breakfast. The more she pulled away at night, the more I retreated in the mornings. At first, it was my way of protecting myself. But soon, it became something else, a quiet resentment, an ache that grew heavier every day. I started spending longer hours at work, taking on projects I didn't even like, anything to avoid going home early. My colleagues thought I was just ambitious. In truth, I was running from the silence that had settled in my home like a permanent guest. One evening, my coworker Ben asked if everything was okay. "You've been off lately, man. Everything good at home?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just work stuff." He nodded, though I could tell he didn't believe me. You know, sometimes the worst thing about relationships isn't the fights. It's the silence. That hit harder than I wanted to admit. When I finally got home that night, the house was dark except for the faint glow from the TV. Emily was curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up when I entered. "Hey," I said softly. "Hey," she replied, eyes still on her screen. I set my bag down and sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, but far enough to notice how she subtly leaned away. "How was your day?" I asked. "Fine. Yours?" "Busy." That was it. No follow-up, no curiosity. Just two people exchanging polite words out of habit. I wanted to reach out, to remind her of who we used to be. The couple that stayed up late talking about dreams, the pair that couldn't go a day without a hug or a kiss. But every time I tried, she met me with that invisible wall. Eventually, I stopped trying. One Friday night, I came home later than usual. I'd had a few drinks with colleagues. Not enough to be drunk, but enough to dull the ache in my chest. When I walked into the bedroom, she was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at her back. "You don't even say goodnight anymore." I whispered. Still no response. That's when something inside me cracked. Not in anger, but in exhaustion. I realized I couldn't keep pouring love into a void that gave nothing back. So I stopped. The next morning, I left before sunrise. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. I started going to the gym early, something I hadn't done in years. It wasn't about fitness. It was about finding a place where I didn't feel invisible. The rhythmic sound of weights clinking, the hum of treadmills, the faint smell of coffee from the nearby cafe. It all reminded me that life still moved, even if my marriage had frozen in time. Weeks passed this way. The distance between us became routine. I no longer reached for her at night, and she no longer pretended to be asleep. It was an unspoken agreement. She rejected me in the evenings, and I avoided her every morning. But one morning, as I was about to leave, she woke up and looked at me. "You're leaving early again?" she asked, her voice groggy. I paused at the door. "Yeah, got an early meeting." She stared at me for a second. "You've been saying that a lot lately." "Because it's true." She didn't respond, just pulled the blanket closer around her. I turned to leave, but something made me glance back. For the first time in months, she looked sad, genuinely sad. That image haunted me throughout the day. Maybe she missed me too, in her own way, or maybe she just didn't like the change in our pattern. I didn't know. That night, I came home earlier than usual. I found her sitting at the dining table, staring at an untouched cup of tea. "Emily," I said quietly. She looked up. "Hey!" We stood there for a moment, caught in the awkward space between wanting to talk and not knowing how. Finally, I said, "Are we okay?" She sighed. "I don't know, Alex." Her honesty cut deeper than any rejection. She continued, "I don't know when we stopped feeling close. I don't know how to fix it." I nodded slowly. "Neither do I." We sat in silence. Two people who had once shared everything, but now couldn't even share a sentence without feeling lost. That night, I didn't try to hold her, and for the first time, she didn't turn away. But she didn't reach for me either. The next morning, as I left for work, she didn't say goodbye. I didn't wait for her to. It was strange how love could fade without either person intending for it to. One night at a time, one rejection at a time, until all that remained was the echo of what used to be. As I drove to work, I realized something that scared me. I didn't know if I wanted to fix it anymore. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog. Everything looked familiar, yet distant, as if I was living someone else's life. Emily and I shared the same house, the same routines, even the same bed, but there was no warmth left between us. It was like coexisting with a stranger who once knew every corner of my soul. Some nights, I caught myself replaying old memories just to remember what love used to feel like. The way she used to run her fingers through my hair, the way she'd fall asleep on my chest during late-night movies. It all felt like another lifetime. Now we just existed in silence. But silence, as I learned, can scream louder than any argument. One evening, I came home to find Emily sitting by the window, her laptop open but untouched. The golden glow of sunset painted her face, and for a fleeting moment, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with, soft, peaceful, unaware of how much she'd changed me. "You're home early," she said, her voice calm but uncertain. "Yeah," I replied, taking off my jacket. Didn't feel like staying late. She nodded and looked back out the window. "It's getting colder." I hesitated, not sure what to say. "Yeah." It was strange how two people could talk so much and say so little. After a long pause, she closed her laptop and turned to me. "Alex, are you happy?" Her question caught me off guard. I stared at her, unsure how to answer. Happy? What did that even mean anymore? "I don't know," I admitted. "I used to be." She nodded, her eyes glistening as if she'd expected that answer. "Me too." Something in the way she said it felt final, like a confession she'd been holding back for too long. I sat down across from her. Emily, what happened to us? She looked down at her hands. Life happened. Work, stress, expectations. I guess somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling close. I swallowed hard. You mean you stopped loving me? Her eyes flicked up to mine. No, Alex. I still love you. I just don't know how to feel it anymore. That sentence hit me like a punch. How could love exist without feeling? She continued, every night, when you reached for me, I wanted to respond. But something in me froze. I felt disconnected, like I was watching my own life from outside. I thought maybe it would pass, but it didn't. Her voice trembled slightly. And every morning, when you left without saying goodbye, it hurt. But I didn't stop you, because I didn't know how to fix what was broken. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. So what do we do now? I don't know, she whispered. That night, neither of us slept. We lay there, side by side, awake but miles apart. The silence between us wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. Over the next few days, I tried to make small changes. I started coming home earlier, cooked dinner once or twice, even asked if she wanted to go out like we used to. She said yes once, but the evening was awkward, filled with forced smiles and half-hearted conversations. It was like trying to revive something that had already died. One evening, as we sat quietly watching a movie, she suddenly said, "Do you ever think we'd be happier apart?" I turned to her, shocked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we're holding on because we're afraid to let go. Maybe love isn't supposed to hurt this much." Her words hung in the air. Part of me wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that we could fix this if we tried harder. But deep down, I knew she was right. The truth was, I had already started to feel the same. I just didn't have the courage to say it. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the living room staring at our wedding photo. We looked so young, so certain that love alone would carry us through anything. I envied those two people. They had no idea how fragile love could become when left unspoken. The following morning, I didn't avoid her. For the first time in months, I stayed. She was making coffee, her hair tied loosely, her eyes tired. "Emily," I said softly. She turned surprised. "You're still here?" "Yeah, I wanted to talk before work." She nodded slowly, as if bracing herself. "I don't want to keep living like this," I said. "I don't want to resent you. I don't want to keep pretending we're fine when we're not." Her lips trembled. "So what do we do?" I looked at her, my chest heavy. "Maybe we take some time apart. Not as an ending, maybe as a way to breathe again." Tears welled in her eyes. "Do you really think space will help?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but staying like this is destroying us." She looked away, wiping her eyes quickly. "Maybe you're right." That day, I packed a small bag and moved into a rented apartment across town. It wasn't far, but it felt like another world. The silence there was different, not painful, but peaceful. At first, it was strange waking up alone. I missed the sound of her moving around the kitchen, the scent of her shampoo in the hallway. But I also felt lighter, like I could finally breathe without guilt. Days turned into weeks. Occasionally we texted, polite messages about bills or errands. Nothing personal, nothing emotional. But one evening, she called. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," I replied. There was a long pause. I just wanted to say, "I miss you." The words hit harder than I expected. "I miss you too." She exhaled shakily. "I've been thinking about us, about everything." I realized I stopped trying because I was afraid of failing. But now I see that not trying at all was the real failure. I sat there speechless. For months, I'd waited to hear something like that. "I'm not saying we can fix everything overnight," she continued, "but maybe we can start over, not as who we were, but as who we are now." For the first time in a long while, I felt something stir inside me, a small spark of hope. "Okay," I said quietly. "Let's try again." But this time, slowly. The following weekend, we met at a small cafe, the same one where we had our first date years ago. It was strange, sitting across from her, as if we were strangers meeting for the first time, yet it also felt right. We talked for hours. about what went wrong, what we could have done differently, what we still wanted. There were tears, laughter, and long silences, but it wasn't uncomfortable anymore. Over the next few weeks, we began to rebuild, not the old version of our marriage, but a new one. We started spending weekends together, going for walks, rediscovering the little things we've forgotten to appreciate. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Still, some nights were difficult. There were moments when the old pain resurfaced, when I remembered how many times she'd turned away from me. But then I'd remind myself, healing isn't linear. One night, as we sat together on the balcony, she said softly, "Do you still think about those nights?" "Sometimes," I admitted, but not the same way anymore. She looked at me with guilt in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Alex. I really am. I know I hurt you." I reached for her hand, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't pull away. "I know," I said, "but I think we both hurt each other in different ways." The night air was cool, but for once, I didn't feel the cold. Weeks later, as I woke up beside her, I realized something had changed. Not in her, but in me. I no longer woke up avoiding her. I didn't feel the weight of resentment or the ache of rejection. Instead, I felt something simple: peace. It wasn't the fairy tale ending I once imagined, but maybe that's what love really is, not perfection, but persistence. I knew things wouldn't always be easy. There would still be moments of silence, times of distance. But now, we understood each other's flaws better. We learned that love isn't just about passion or desire. It's about choosing each other, even after the hardest nights. Months later, as we sat together watching the sunrise, Emily leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled faintly. "I almost did." She looked up at me, eyes glistening. "But you didn't." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the soft morning light, I realized the truth. Sometimes love isn't about how many times you hold each other, but how many times you find your way back after falling apart. That morning, I didn't avoid her. I stayed, because despite everything, the silence, the pain, the distance, she was still the person I want to come home to. And maybe that was enough.